In this episode we're going... Bloody wind. Do a shoot outside, they say. It'll be great. Hang about.
That's better. Now in this episode we're going to have an in-depth look at what datasheets are. We'll then have a look at terrain and the rules to use them. And then finally we'll cover this issue's scenarios. So stay tuned! So thanks for joining me for part 2 of issue 13. Please make sure first of all that you do subscribe to the channel. You click that little bell icon so you get the notifications whenever I put a video up. I do try to be as regular as possible, but I do regular updates on my social media outlets as well, which are in the description below. Now let's get cracking. So datasheets. So hold it there. You know what? Instead of using that Poxy magazine, I've paid a hell of a lot of money for these freaking cards. So let's do it with these cards. Right. So, Lieutenant Calcius. Let's break down what this datasheet does. So essentially, it's a quick look at everything that your model has or could potentially have, depending on whether or not you choose those loadouts. If they have multiple options, it will usually tell you that you have certain war gear as the basics, and then it will go on to saying you can swap X item for Y item. In this instance with Lieutenant Calcius, you don't have that. Because he's a character, he has a set of war gear that isn't interchangeable. So let's dive into it. So here you'll have a little symbol. This denotes what type of unit it is, whether it's a character, a HQ choice, an elite choice, fast attack. It'll be represented by a different logo here. You then also have the power. For this instance, he's 5 power. And this is a quick way of picking up a game and just knowing roughly how much each unit is worth in order to get an approximation of a even matchup. It doesn't really work that well, but we'll go into that at another time. So you have the name of the unit here and the name again here, just in case you weren't too sure. Then you got all these initials here. Each one represents an actual word, believe it or not, and they have values underneath as well. So let's make some sense of that. Okay, so M for movement, nice and simple. It says 6 inches. So there we go. WS is weapon skill, so how well you fight in combat. So that's 2+, very good. Ballistic skill, that's how well you can shoot. So what you need to roll to hit when you're shooting. So that's a 3+. Your strength, so that's when you're in close combat and you're hitting something, and when you've successfully hit it, you match up the strength against the enemy's toughness, and that will tell you what you need to roll in order to wound them. Likewise, you have your toughness value here, which allows you to match up the enemy's strength against how tough your own unit is. Then you have your wounds, how many attacks you have, your leadership, which we'll go into, I believe, in issue 14 about doing leadership tests. And then you have your save, which is a 3+. So if you ever get an armor save after being wounded, that's what you'll need to roll in order to pass and deny your enemy a wound off your chosen unit. Right, now underneath here we have a brief description of his loadout. So this unit contains 1 Lieutenant Calcius. He is armed with a power sword, a bolt pistol, frag grenades and crack grenades. So as you can see, it's very explicit what he has here. Just as a comparison, we'll have a look at a unit that does have additional options. So a good example is the Plague Marines. So here it says this unit contains 1 plague champion and 2 to 4 plague marines. So you're paying 7 power for this, you'll want to take the maximum number that you can possibly. But at the same time, it's up to whatever you have available at hand. So you can see where using the power way of matching up armies can be quite inaccurate in its matchup, because there's so much difference in how many models you can get for that. So I digress. You can include up to 5 additional plague marines. Change the power rating to 13 if you do. So actually you get a little bit of a discount there, but that's because you don't have an additional champion. Each model is armed with a plague knife, a bolt gun, blight grenades and crack grenades. So here you go. So you got your plague knife is there, you got your bolt gun up there, blight grenades there, well at the bottom, sorry, and so the crack grenades. But you also have the additional options. So here you have the plague champion may replace his bolt gun with a bolt pistol or a plasma gun. The plague champion may take a power fist. The plague champion may also replace his plague knife with a plague sword. Up to 2 plague marines can replace their bolt gun with either a blight launcher or a plasma gun. So as you can see, there are war gear options here. Now, in a match play scenario, everything has its own points, even the war gear. So if you were going to change the war gear, you'd have to pay a different amount of points in order to use that in your game. With the power system, you don't need to. You can choose any loadout you wish to the maximum effect, as long as you've got that model available, and have at it. And then of course you have all of the additional information for each of those weapons. Right, now I won't go back to this guy because this one is a much more in-depth look at the data sheet, so try and keep up. It seems like a lot, but it really isn't, and it just takes a couple of looks, a couple of games, and you get bang on used to these. Now, you got your weapon names. You have the range of each weapon. Okay. This weapon here, plasma gun, has a different rule, because when you are attacking with this weapon, choose one of the profiles below. So you can do a standard shot, which is strength 7, -3 AP, which means that it does -3 to the opponent's armor save and does 1 damage. Or you can supercharge, same range, it's still rapid fire 1 shot, but it's strength 8, AP -3 and does 2 damage. The difference is it's a high risk. On a hit roll of a 1, the bearer is slain after all of this weapon's shots have been resolved. Plague knife, you got the rules here. Now you got different types as well. You have assault 2. This means that you get 2 shots and you can run with it. So you can run and then do 2 shots, no problem. Pistol 1. That means you just get 1 shot with your pistol weapon, but it means that pistol weapon can be shot in combat as well. Rapid fire 1. So this weapon can double its shots if it's within half range. So its normal range is 24. If you're within 12, you get to shoot twice. So you got these as well. Then you have melee. That means it only works when you're in combat. And then grenade, D6. That means you've got to roll a D6 to see how many hits you get. And grenade 1 means it's just 1 dice you roll to hit. And there you have it. Really easy. Then you got your abilities down here. So you know about abilities already. You know, you've had them in the game already next to your introduction to each scenario. but they're all just listed here, nice and easy for you to see. And then you have your faction keywords. Now this is probably going to be covered later on in the game, but certain heroes or characters or units have abilities that affect other units within your army who have the same or similar keywords. So Chaos, Nurgle, Heretic, Astartes, Death Guard. You might have an ability which affects all Death Guard units, in which case this unit would benefit from that effect. And then you have other keywords, Infantry, Plague Marines. So again, for different ability boosting stuff that you can do in the game. And there you have it. That is it, really. The only difference between this one and this one is there's less text. And there we go. Look at that. Everyone's laughing that I wasted my money on a premium sub. Well, guess who's laughing now? Okay, so when you are playing with your battlefield terrain, there are a few rules you need to grasp. First of all, moving over terrain. Now you have different types of terrain. You've got difficult terrain, you've got terrain that you can hide behind, you've got dangerous terrain, and you also got terrain that you can scale. In this issue, we focus on terrain that you can scale, like the container, for instance. What you need to do when you're moving on top of it is measure out how far you need to go in order to be safely on top. Now, you have to make sure you got enough movement left to get up there and then to get onto it. So first of all, you measure out in this example, this guy is 1 inch away, so it was 1 inch. Then you measure how high you are climbing. The container is about 2 inches, so that's 3 inches in total. He still has another 3 inches of his movement left. So that allows him 3 inches to move along the top of the container. Line of sight also works. It's very much the same as when you're on ground level. You just get an eye-to-eye view from the shooting unit and to see if they can see the enemy unit. Whether you're on top of the container or you're shooting at someone on top of the container, as long as you can see them, then you can shoot them. Cover is the same as well. You just got to make sure that you're hiding behind it and you're not showing any part of your model to the enemy unit. If they can see part of your model, then they can shoot at that whole unit. So make sure that you are careful. Charging is exactly the same, making sure that you have enough movement to go to the terrain, scale it, and then get to the enemy unit. If you fail, then of course standard rules apply for when you fail your charge. If the enemy unit has Overwatch, then they still get their Overwatch before you actually roll for your charge. So it is a gamble, but you have to make sure that you can reach the enemy unit just like you would on the ground floor. But you have to take into account that you are climbing up and you have to measure that as well. Once you've charged your enemy unit, if some of the models haven't actually managed to scale onto the top of that piece of terrain, or there's not enough room for them and they have to stay on the ground level or the level below, they won't be able to attack because they can't reach up. Say their attack range is 1 inch. That container in this example is 2 inches high. That means they cannot reach up. But there are times where you get wobbly model syndrome. Now this is a very common thing for gamers to come across. It's usually when you have a model within a unit that can be placed where it needs to be placed, but it gets a little wobbly, and all it would take is a little tap on the table for that model to fall over. Now, to save your model from being broken or the paintwork being chipped up, whatever, you just place the model where it can go to show that it can go there, and then you agree with your opponent that it is actually in that location. Then you can put a marker there or dice or whatever to indicate that the model's there, and move the model away, but keep it close to hand so you know that it's still there. And it's that simple. So it's a little bit of courtesy between both players. In this game, you are fighting over valuable ammunition. Both of you are running out and you want to secure it for your own troops. The Ultramarines, they don't want the Death Guard to have it. They want to make sure that they run out so they can repel their attacks. The Death Guard, if they get it, they'll be able to renew their attacks with this additional ammunition. So how to win? This game lasts for 5 battle rounds. Either player can win by eliminating the enemy or by having more models than the enemy within 3 inches of the objective at the end of the game. Okay, so normal setup rules apply. Now, you don't have to, but I would strongly suggest using your piece of terrain and just putting it where that is, okay? Because you want to get used to using it in your games. And then the objective, go there. So the Death Guard player is going to need 5 Plague Marines, one of which will obviously be a champion. They're also going to need all 12 of your Poxwalkers, 3 Intercessors, 3 Reavers. To make the games more interesting, I would suggest putting these Storm Bolters on. Why? Because it adds an additional element of random into the game. This will mean that some of your Ultramarines will have a little extra firepower, and in the same vein, the Poxwalkers who don't have any range attacks can have range attacks if they get in control of the container. Right, so Death Guard. See expanded rules overleaf for rules on using the container's mounted weapons. Poxwalkers have a ballistic skill of 6+, so they can fire the mounted storm bolters even if they are not very likely to hit anything. Every shot counts. Plague Marines are excellent at holding objectives because they're hard as nails. Space Marine player. Climbing on top of the container may give you excellent line of sight, but it will also make you an easy target. So remember, you can always just hang back and shoot anything that does climb on it. Or you can hide behind the container and wait for something to climb on it and then charge it. Frag grenades can be effective against large units and of unarmed opponents like the Poxwalkers. The Plague Marines are going to be tough to shift from the objective. Try to wear them down with shooting. So try and get good line of sight on them and whittle them down, because in combat it's going to take a lot to take them out. Remember, you want to get these guys up here on the Storm Bolters, okay? Utilize the Storm Bolters. You want these guys to hold the objective. Keep them in cover so they cannot be shot at. That way, it's very easy to repel the opponent. Plus, when they get closer, you can charge them without having to suffer overwatch. Likewise, these guys are going to want to push forwards as soon as possible and having your reavers charge forward as well. You want to make the most of these guys because they have that extra attack in close combat. So use them at full advantage to try and block the Plague Marines and slow them down before they get to the objective. These guys, they can also use their firepower to wear them down too, and then you can deal with the Poxwalkers quite easily. Lieutenant Calcius is very effective against the Plague Marines, but more in combat because of his power weapon. His strength lies a lot more in his abilities, like the reroll ones to wound. So utilize him as best as possible, but keep him in cover. And that's it really. That's your tactical part for both teams. Unitorum Armoured Container, Storm Bolters, Strength 4, 2 shots, range 24, 4 shots at half range, 1 damage. So these are the rules you're going to need for when you are using the Storm Bolters on top of the container. The container also gives cover save bonus, so models gain +1 to their saves when obscured by terrain. So when all models in a unit are obscured by terrain, they gain +1 to their save when being shot at. If unsure, stoop down and get a look from behind the shooting model. See if the models are obscured from view. Simple enough. So thank you very much for joining me for this episode. Please do remember to subscribe, click that little bell icon, share the video, comment below what you thought about these data sheets and the new rules for terrain, and yeah, keep being awesome and supporting the channel. It really does make all the difference. In the next issue we'll actually be going over painting the container. As you can see, I did start on it already because it takes a while to do. You also will be looking at, what are we going to be looking at? I've forgotten already. In the next issue we'll also be looking over how to finish painting these up, a new technique called dry brushing, and a little bit more about the organisation of the Imperium. So I'll see you next time.